think the weaknesses in the defense are some of the smaller role players, and I think the big weakness is the defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. The next team we're going to be talking about is the Los Angeles Rams. 2 years ago, the Rams were 13-3 in the Super Bowl. Last year, a big step back. Some people kind of started to find the kinks in Sean McVay's system. And the Rams, the Rams still won 9 games last year. So it's not like they were horrible. The amount of draft capital and money they spent to get from the Super Bowl to 9 wins was a little bit startling. A lot of people, I think that they're in a really bad position right now. But they got rid of some of that money. They cut off their arm to save the rest of the body. They cut Todd Gurley. That might come back to bite him. He might have a lot of good years left. But I've always thought it's better to get out on a running back early than it is as a running backs after you've paid a running back and are stuck with him. Their offense, the 2 running backs they have to replace him. They have a very talented Cam Akers from Florida. They have Darrell Henderson Jr. from Memphis, who they drafted last year. Malcolm Butler, who also had a couple good games backing up Gurley, is still there as well. So they have that kind of 3-headed monster. They'll figure out which one they want to go with there first. The receivers, they traded Brandon Cooks. They drafted Van Jefferson from Georgia to go along with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Their biggest strength on offense, I think, is at their tight end position. Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, and the rookie Bryson Hopkins from Purdue, who I think is going to have a big breakout year. I think they're going to use him more as a receiver than a tight end. Kupp and Goff obviously have great chemistry. When Goff's going, he's good. 16 interceptions last year is disappointing, but he had 4,600 yards also. So he was throwing the ball around a lot of yards, but not a whole lot, but more interceptions than you'd like to see from Jared. It looked more like Jeff Fisher, Jared Goff, than it did Sean McVay, Jared Goff. I think that's a hiccup. I think he'll continue to work through that. The offensive line, I can't tell you a lot about this offensive line. I don't know a lot about him. The one guy I do know about is Andrew Whitworth, one of the all-time great Cincinnati Bengals offensive linemen. He's just old, man. I wanted the Bengals to get him this year, but he's just old. He's 39, 38. I think he just got a 3-year contract too. He should be going into the Hall of Fame when his career's over. But man, Andrew Whitworth is just old to have that guy be your best offensive lineman. John Haverstein as well as at the other tackle position. That's going to be their big problem, trying to build and kind of remold that offensive line into the type of line that they had when they were in Super Bowl contention. The defense is a lot like the Cardinals. I think they're talented but not very good. They have a first-year defensive coordinator in Brandon Staley. He's been in the NFL for 4 years. Last year, he was the Rams' outside linebacker coach. The year before that, he was outside linebacker coach for the Broncos, where he would have worked directly with Von Miller. And then he got a start in the NFL as an outside linebackers coach for Chicago Bears, where he was with the Bears when they were bad. And then he also helped work with Khalil Mack in his first great season with the Chicago Bears. So I think that's a big. He's an outside linebackers coach, which I think they'll need because I don't think they have a great outside linebacker. The 3 best players are Brockers, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey, I think, is kind of getting to that overrated defensive back territory a little bit. I think maybe he's been drinking his own Kool-Aid. I don't think he's, with the exception of maybe that first or second year, I think he's ever been really a top-tier cornerback. I think he's been one of those guys that talks a lot, and then when you put a top-tier receiver on him, he either gets burnt like he does against Tyreek Hill, or he gets mollywopped with fists like A.J. Green did to him. Aaron Donald's the best football player in the NFL right now. There's not a whole lot needs to say about Aaron Donald. His sack numbers were down because if you look at there's pictures where they say his sack numbers are down. I wonder why. And then it's the entirety of the interior offensive line, center, guard, all triple teaming Aaron Donald, and he's still getting pressure on the quarterback. He's that good. But I think this defense is going to struggle a lot. I think it might hold them out of the playoffs. But I think the Rams go 10-6. I like the offense. I like McVay and Goff to bounce back. I like them doing more with less. And I think the special teams will be strong. Johnny Hacker's the best punter in the NFL. They got rookie San Sloman out of Miami, Ohio. So no more Legatron in Los Angeles for the Rams. So I have them going 10-6, finishing second in the division. The Seattle Seahawks have constantly, for the last 10 years, been one of the best teams in the NFL, winning a Super Bowl, losing another one. They won the division several times. Last year, they came literally within an inch of winning the division and getting a first-round bye. And not covering. So, they covered. We won. 49ers won the division. This team is very clearly built for Russell Wilson. And I like that they did that with the offense. And looking at the receivers, it's very much a deep ball, like long touchdown team. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. They had Philip Dorsett this year. Those are three guys that all run sub 4.40s. Those are three guys that are all probably some of the best seam route runners in the NFL, seam route, post route guys in the NFL. They got Greg Olsen to work underneath, along with Will Dissly if he's healthy. Running backs, Rashad Penny, Chris Carson. They had Carlos Hyde, who had the best year of his career for the Houston Texans last year. And all of it goes around Russell Wilson, who I'm finally kind of ready to give up on hating, because he is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He may be... No, he's not the best. He's very good, though. He's right below Patrick Mahomes' level. He does everything Patrick Mahomes does, slightly worse than Patrick Mahomes, and that's not a slight. He's very good. He probably should have had an NFL MVP by now. He's been the only show in town on offense, really, for a long, long, long time. The offensive line, I don't know a whole lot about it. The only guy I recognize in the O-line was Mike Iupati, who was a former San Francisco 49er, former Arizona Cardinal. He's kind of been around the division, former Idaho guard. He was good at San Francisco. I'm not sure if he's good now. Offensive lines are something I don't really know a whole lot about unless you're very bad or very good. And Mike Iupati was very good at one time. But I think, if I remember correctly, he had a very scary injury when he was in Arizona. I don't know how he's recovered from that. I did see their backup left tackle is the train wreck known as Cedric Ogbuehi, former Bengals first-round draft pick. The worst offensive lineman in football as far as I'm concerned. The guy stinks. I can't believe he's still collecting a paycheck. The Seahawks offense is going to be however good Russell Wilson decides it's going to be. He's going to run around for his life. He's going to throw deep balls. He's going to run around until he gets a holding call somewhere downfield. That's what the offense has been for a couple years now. They kind of got back to the roots with Chris Carson last year, just running it between the tackles. That kind of smash mouth game. I'm sure if they get late in the year and a couple running backs, if Carson Penny go down again, I'm sure Marshawn Lynch is ready to roll back up from Oakland. But with the Seahawks bread and butter for the last 15 years has been their defense. Even further back than that, when they went to the Super Bowl in 2005, it was Lofa Taputu and John Abraham and guys like that on the and they had a safety whose name I'm forgetting right now, but he was cold. But it's guys like that, and then later Richard Sherman. God, I'm forgetting the other guy's name, the big guy for the Seahawks. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, Bruce Irvin, Michael Bennett. It's always been those guys. Wagner and KJ Wright and Bruce Irvin are still there. Bobby Wagner is probably the best middle linebacker in football right now. I know, at least in Madden, he's a 99 overall. In the NFL, he's always been one of those guys who I forget about when I talk about great linebackers, because he's not a vocal, loud guy. And he plays in Seattle, where I think all their defensive players kind of mesh together. He's very quiet. He's very London Fletcher with more team success. And KJ Wright's he's a great coverage linebacker. He's smaller. He makes tackles on the outside. He's good in coverage. The defensive line, Jaron Reed, Bruce Irvin, Poona Ford, who's one of my favorite names. They always do their job. Seattle's defense always does its job. Keeps games close. Warren McDougald, Shaquille Griffith in the secondary. Trayon Diggs is the safety. They have Quentin Dunbar, but he just got arrested for robbing people at a party with a gun. For whatever reason, NFL player would need to rob other people. So he's a question mark. I don't know how that's all going to turn out. So I think I have Seattle winning 9 games. They're going 9-7. I haven't gone through the rest of the NFL whether to make the playoffs or not is up in the air, but I think they'll be in a lot of games. They'll be in that late season discussion again. So the side note on the Seahawks is I think the sort of charity case Shaquem Griffin draft pick is going to start to expire soon because shock and awe, the guy with one hand isn't a very good football player. He's got 18 tackles in his career. I think 16 of those have come on special teams. And maybe he sticks around and becomes a great special teams player for 10 years, but he's not going to make it as an NFL defensive player. And that's not ableist. That's not discriminatory. That's just objective. I mean, he's playing defense with one hand. As a coverage linebacker, defense with one hand is not going to do it all the time. It's impressive and it's awe-inspiring that he's made it this far with just one hand. But still, I don't get why the draft pick was made in the first place. In the 5th round, it seems early for that. I'm sure they could have gotten him the 6th or 7th round. I get his brother was already in Seattle. But I think this might be his last year at the Seahawks. It might be his last year in the NFL. Unless he puts together a good season. I hope he does. I'm not rooting for the guy to fail. I'm not one of those people. Yeah, Seahawks, 9-7. I think that they are going to be right on the outer edge of the playoff race. And again, there's another playoff spot this year. So maybe the Seahawks make it on the virtue of that extra playoff spot this year, which is something I had completely forgotten about. And I'm sure I said it earlier, maybe when I recorded this without pressing record. This is the second time I'm doing this. It's kind of running together. But I think Seattle's going to be right on that outside edge, and it's going to be solely because of Russell Wilson. And I think, unless they want to I don't think they're going to give every MVP award in the next 10 years to Pat Mahomes, even though he probably deserves it. I think he's well on his way. I'm already ready to say he's maybe the best quarterback of all time, talent-wise. But let's get to the point like it did with LeBron James, with Michael Jordan, with Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady, where eventually you have to spread out the MVP a little bit. I don't think you have to, but they like to. And I think one of these next couple of years could be the year that we see Russell Wilson sort of get that MVP, as I think he should. I think if he drags the Seahawks team to the playoffs, he should get the MVP. Pete Carroll just continues to do these sort of coaching jobs where as soon as you think he's done, he makes the playoffs. Like last year, I thought after they lost to the Cowboys in the playoffs 2 years ago, I thought they were kind of done. I thought they were going to digress. I thought Russell